thanks to my parents, I have never been away from my roots. It was a mandate at home that we'll always speak in Punjabi. I became very comfortable with the language. Secondly, there were a lot of discussions around the value systems in Sikhism.
You have also lived every corporate employee's dream. You have worked a job in Goa.
Absolutely. So
talk about the reality of that.
Understood that, I think the biggest roadblocker for someone is fear. The second very, very important thing is belief. So if somebody has belief in something and is out of fear, I think anything is possible.
How does one get to know that I have the entrepreneurial itch? When do you know I am not made for corporate? I want to do something on my own.
Early stage startup, I actually relate it like a marriage. It evolves to maybe you can relate it with a football match. Large stage company is something like what you can relate it. It's like a watch. One has to realize that you want comforts of life and you want to do something great. Both cannot happen hand to hand. It's very important that one has to really move out of that comfort zone and only then something is achieved. Collections is not about getting the money collected. It is a thin line between getting the money collected and even managing the borrower experience. Because largely for financial institutions, 30 to 40%, specifically in unsecured lending, are repeat borrowers.
Correct.
Right? So it is important that the borrowers are happy.
Hi guys. Our guest today is Janmit Singh, an expert in retail lending. We spoke to him about the retail lending industry in India. We spoke to him about Frenzo Finserv, his startup. We spoke to him about entrepreneurship, startups at large, career, how to go about that. This has been a fascinating conversation. I hope you have as much fun watching this as much as I have had doing this. Please like, share and comment and subscribe to Punjabis Have Depth. Hi Janmeet, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Javji. Thank you so much for calling me here.
Wow, it's amazing catching up with you. Okay, so you grew up in Asansol, right?
Absolutely. In the eastern part of the country is where I grew up. So I grew up in Asansol. So not in proper Asansol. So there is a smaller place within Asansol which people call Banpur. So primarily that's a steel plant. That's the second oldest steel plant of the country. So that is where I was born and brought up. So I have spent the first 18 years of my life there.
And you spent 18 years in Asansol and then you went to Jalgaon in Maharashtra for engineering.
I went to Jalgaon, a new set of friends and all. And then again, the first year of engineering happened and I still remember the day, my initial start was not that great. While I was very happy that I'll be an engineer, but the results of the first year were not towards my side. So I was very upset with that. And then I still remember the day, when I, at that point of time, we were not having those cell phones and all. So I went to a PCO booth and I called up my father and told him, I feel it's a tough task for me to really finish up engineering. And he very calmly asked me, engineering takes 4 years. Now you've completed 1 year. Remaining 3 years, you'll be able to finish up in 4-5 years. Okay, is that fine with you? And he was so cool about it. I told him, somehow that entire stress went off me. Wow. And I said, okay, let's focus more on academics. Fortunately, I got a bunch of friends who could actually induce a lot of faith in me. Every time and then somebody tells it, you know better than us, you know this, know this. Somehow you don't know why and how, knowingly, unknowingly, they actually had induced a lot of belief in me that I am capable of doing it. So at one side, my father actually, somehow moved me away from that fear, the fear of failure. At the same time, my friends were inducing a lot of belief in me that, I am capable of doing well. The second year results came and I was a rank holder in my college.
Wow.
But again, at that point of life, I understood that, I think the biggest roadblocker for someone is fear. Fear. The more you move ahead over it, it really helps you. And the second very, very important thing, is belief. So if somebody has belief in something and is out of fear, I think anything is possible.
I think problems are more imaginary and they are more in your head than they are in real life.
Absolutely, that is
Imagine
how it is.
100 problems, you actually face only 2-3 of them. And then from Jalgaon you went to Delhi. So Punjabi was finally close to Punjab.
Absolutely. My parents wanted me to settle in North because, they were seeing long-term career for me and a better placement for me.
And growing up, did you ever feel that you wanted to grow up in Punjab or any particular attachment or fondness to the state per se?
So, in fact, thanks to my parents, I have never been away from my roots. So, something which you would agree that Punjabis are everywhere.
Correct.
So you go to any part of the country, go to any part of the world, you
will
find
find a
Punjabis there,
Punjabi.
right? So it's not about where you physically are, but more important thing is that you must be connected to your roots. And my parents did the best of the efforts in doing that. So firstly, like as very small initiative, what they started doing was that they started speaking in Punjabi at home. So because in a place like Bengal, you will not find people around with whom you can converse in your own mother tongue. So it was a mandate at home that we always speak in Punjabi. So because of which I became very comfortable with the language. So that was one. Secondly, there were a lot of discussions around the value systems, which are there in Sikhism. So not going deep into the history, but at least at even at small tasks, they will relate it with Sikhism and tell me then Sikhism, this is it. So you should do things like that. So I never felt disconnected per se. Yes, I would admit that at that point of time, moving from one place to another, visiting Punjab was not that easy because even the airport was there in Calcutta and it was quite a journey. But yes, my parents ensured that my roots are still there and I'm close to that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Nice. Talk to me about Punjabi values that shaped you, that had an impact on you growing up.
So primarily, if you talk about Punjabi values, if you talk about Sikhism itself, right? The beauty of Sikhism is it actually talks about oneness of everything.
Correct.
Right? When it talks about oneness of everything, it says that we are all interconnected and with the same power, right? So that primarily means that we are a part of the same system. So when you understand that, you move away from hatred, you move more towards love and warmth towards other, right? And it's not about people to people warmth. It even implies to creature, it even implies to non-livable things, right? And you move away from destruction. So I think that was the best learning which I got from there. Then again, very simple values: naam japo, kirat karo, one chako. I mean, if you talk about Sikhism, the entire Sikhism is based on very simple principles. Like you naam japo, you just remember God. That's about it. Just remember the Almighty. Kirat karo, you do your work hard. That's it. That is what the world needs. And one chako, whatever you earn, spare a part of it for the society. I think that's about it. So the best part of Sikhism as a Punjabi, which I learned, was that if you really want to absorb it, it's I think one of the simplest things to absorb. But of course, if you want to go deep into the philosophy, it's an ocean. It will take your entire life, and you will not be able to cover it across.
True. So then you did your MBA and you got into HDFC Bank, where you got into the world of retail lending.
Absolutely. And then it so happened that this HDFC Bank was one of the first recruiters in our college, and there were around 227 people who applied for it, and I just went there to try myself.
Correct.
And in the rush of things, one after the other, I started giving interviews, and it was around late night, around 11:30 when the results were announced, and I was one of those who got selected.
Nice.
People were congratulating me, and I was horrified because I mean, you know your strength. I was really worried. I mean, I'm going into something wherein I am not very sure about I'll be able to do well or not. But then the next day, so that night I could really not sleep because I was really worried, and people very happily, I was getting calls and people were congratulating me. Wow, you've done a wonderful job. You're all settled, and I was actually horrified. The next day I thought that there are 6 months to finish off MBA. Let's enjoy the 6 months. We'll see what happens next. So that's how things moved for it. And then I went into HDFC, and that was the stepping stone of my career. I think that I have been really privileged to get into such an organization, because that has been an organization which gives a lot of time, invests a lot of time on the people. So initially I was there in Mumbai for a couple of months. I had thorough training about banking, all the aspects of it. Then I moved to retail assets as the first sales manager of alternate channels in Delhi.
Wow. So that was your first exposure to lending.
That was my first exposure to lending. So I joined retail assets as I said, as the first sales manager of alternate channels. So the work was to cross-sell, PL product to the existing, customers of the bank. So that's what I did. But the best part of working there was that, like, they used to make you a domain expert. So primarily, during that phase, I could learn a lot about lending, primarily the unsecured part of it. So that was one. So in terms of product exposure, that was great. So I was not only, sidelined and doing sales. So that was one. Along with that, at the age of 25, I started with a team of 7 people that grew to around 225. So there was a large team I was managing, and again, managing people is a task in itself. So that was again a good exposure which I got.
And you also built a PL product for SBI cards after that.
Absolutely. So from HDFC, I moved to SBI cards, and SBI cards again, like, I was a part of the corporate sales team, and then again the first ASM to start branch channel sales and all that. Then eventually I got a call from the national head, and he wanted to understand what I had done in PL. So that meeting was supposed to happen for around 15 minutes, and then went as long as I think 3.5 hours.
Wow.
Wherein I explained what PL is, and thanks to my previous exposure wherein I was knowing how products work. So that happened well. The very next day I got a call from HR, and I was told that start sitting in the head office and create a product around PL for SBI card. The best part of it was that, like, whenever you're working, I've understood one thing, that it should not be that this is my job, I focus on it, I'm done. Right? When you are open to explore other avenues and ready to absorb whatever comes to you, it helps you in the next stage of life. So that's what really helped. I had some decent exposure about how PL works, but that was more from the business perspective. But eventually when I started working on it, I realized that there is a lot more to it. Like, because as a business guy, you only see the tip of the iceberg, but otherwise there is a lot of which you really understand. So that was quite a learning experience. We would do something and we realized that there are a lot more which we have not touched, and again do a lot of research around it, then build system process, and again there will be a roadstop block which will come in, and that's what we did. It took us around good 10-11 months to complete it end to end. But by the time it got done, like, I think we actually got very thorough with what this unsecured lending is, how it works, the entire end-to-end process and everything around it.
You have also lived every corporate employee's dream. You have worked a job in Goa.
Absolutely. So
talk about the reality of that.
That's a pretty interesting question. Yeah. So I remember, when I got through in Goa, so before leaving that place, there was a party, right? And there were a bunch of friends who had come, and they were saying, and they were with your wives and all that, right? And they would be talking about, oh man, what will you do in Goa? There are limitations there and all that. And that happened, and the very next day morning, I opened up my WhatsApp, and one of them had sent his resume to me. But anyways, that was on the lighter part. Goa was again a very nice place to work. I think I really loved that place. One, because the type of project which was there, that was wonderful. That gave a lot of exposure. Apart from that, I could really have a very good family time there, because my wife also joined me there, and at least, that was a place wherein, as a family, we could spend a real quality time. So that's why Goa actually went well.
Is it as chilled out as people claim it to be for a corporate employee?
To some extent, yes. I would say that. But eventually the challenge in Goa is, like, I still remember, like, I would go to a client, give them a pitch and everything, things will go fine. And when they will ask me that, where do you operate from? I would say Goa, and they will start laughing.
You also had the entrepreneurial itch for a very long time.
I would confess, yes.
Talk about your trials and errors. You tried 2-3 different things.
Yes. So in fact, I wanted to become an entrepreneur since a very long time. And again, like, I at one point of time, I started a website. The name of the website was Travel My Earth, which never picked up. Then again, like, I did something around VTS, vehicle tracking systems. That was a new tech of that time which was coming in. I tried that. Then again, through alternate data, there were some models which I had created. So if you know what is the behavior, what are the digital footprint, what are the patterns of your customers, you can do a lot of things around that. So that is it. But over the due course of years, what I really realized was that it's not half-heartedly doing some things never gives you result. True. So it's very important that whatever I had to do it with a very focused sense of mind, and then I had to do it wholeheartedly.
Correct.
So then I started.
Which is where Frenzo happened.
That's where Frenzo Finserv happened. So at that point of time, what happened is that then I started thinking, like, I sat down and thought what to do. I wanted to do something wherein I have some expertise, because I did not really wanted to jump into unknown waters. right? Then I started evaluating. So I thought at one place I have got payments and the other place, I have got lending. So I figured out that collections is one piece which has not been touched that well. So definitely there is an opportunity. When I did a deep dive, I understood that it is like a 90 lakh crore market, like which is
Wow.
so large. Apart from that, I thought that so that was one piece. The market was big. I knew about this domain end to end. The third thing was again. There was no saturation, right? So there was
an
scope.
opportunity.
Correct.
You saw an opportunity.
And the biggest thing which I really loved about venturing into it was there was a lot of scope of innovation, because still it had not reached a limit wherein you could say that it has saturated and it's difficult to really think of something which is out of the box, because the box was all open, so you can just
Also, because it is possibly the hardest piece to crack. Collections is the most hated job. Collections is hated by customers. Hated.
Absolutely.
So, Bajaj Finserv obviously gets a lot of heat for that.
Yes.
So why? In a way, it's very obvious why it is a empty space.
Yes.
So why would you venture there?
So I'll tell you, because whatever is hard is what, and because of being hard it is empty. That's the biggest opportunity, right? So that's what really clicked. And what I really figured out was that if you talk about collections, people who have been traditionally doing collections, they had their apprehensions about the adoption of technology. People who have been pure into tech, they are very bright, but they don't have domain knowledge. So the important part was to marry them both. So once we started doing that, we started getting results, and that's how we literally clicked.
So how does one get to know that I have the entrepreneurial itch? When do you know I am not made for corporate? I want to do something on my own.
I think that itch literally comes while you are working, you don't work as an employee, you start working as an entrepreneur himself. So that's when you really know that you have that within you, because there are a lot of times when people work as an employee, and when I say the employee mindset, I come at 9, leave at 6. This is only work. I've done a fair job. I'm happy with that. If you have that mindset, I think you should think twice before jumping into an entrepreneurial journey. But wherever you are working, if you really feel that you are able to think beyond, you work as if it's your own business. I think only then, if you have been working with that mindset over the years, you will be able to do well when you have your own startup which you are running it all by yourself.
And you are. Talk to me about challenges you faced at Frenzo so far.
So as I said that the first thing was to decide what to do. Then eventually we narrowed down that we will do collections, right? When we narrowed down on that, then the first thing was to create a product. So we started working on it. The first version of the product was created, and we did a testing as well. That is, testing went fine, and then we realized that it will not be able to manage scale, right? And then again, when we figured out that what to do about it, the entire product had to be scrapped and it had to be made from fresh.
Remade.
So that actually turned up.
Okay.
And then I thought that let's sit back. We have worked for around a year. So let's again sit back and again let's decide what to do. How should we all go about it? And we created a wireframe all together. Created the second version of it, right? So when the second version was created, so by then we had already spent around 1.5 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we incorporated in the year 2024 in April. And with the second version, we went to a single client and told them that we'll give you services for free. But yes, we will run your allocations on production. And they agreed. And it worked out very, very well for us. So from all the learnings which we had, then we finally turned up with a third version of product, which has been pretty smart. I mean, that is where we really had put in a lot of ML into it, not AI, but yes, and that actually picked up very, very well. So when we became very, very confident about the product, then we thought of jumping into it.
Correct.
The reality is that the first challenge which actually came was in the product making, and we wanted to be really sure before going to the market that we have a product which is really awesome, which will be meaningful for the users. So we did that. While product development is a continuous journey, you don't stop anywhere. You keep on evolving. But yes, we were at a decent point. Then the second thing was going into the market. So initially we had business teams, they were going to the market, but we were not able to get conversions because people would not trust, being a new player, a new entrant as such. So that actually came up as a challenge. So building on the business was the second piece which we had to address. Then eventually what happened, then I took up this full-time role in April, and then April when we started moving on, started reaching out to those people. What really helped were relations, because that's where they trusted you. Okay, you have come in. I'm not giving you business because there is a company you are representing, Frenzo Finserv, which is pretty new.
Correct.
I am giving business by your name, by your reputation. So that happened, and we had to keep up that reputation. But when that started clicking in, then business was addressed. So
Nice.
that's the second piece which was taken up. Then the third piece was operations, right? So when we started off again, like the product was set, product was growing, all mature. Business actually, started shooting up very well. Third thing was to have an this is quite a manpower driven business as well. While there's tech, there is also manpower involved in it. So there were, during the initial days, I remember like we were just building on, we'll get business and we would not have manpower. And then we had to streamline that. So that was a challenge during the initial days, but that again we addressed. So yes, during the entire course of this duration, what I really figured out that there will be one or the other thing which will, coming up, but only thing is how can we really find a solution around it is more important, and that really helped us sail through.
True. And what value do you bring to your clients? Because mindset in big organizations is typically to say, I'll do it in-house, why go to a third party?
Okay.
So what do you do that is so different that they can't do?
All right. So let me try to explain how collection really works in the industry, and only then where do we really fit in.
Okay.
So if you see the collection models with the financial institutions, so there are a set of financial institutions who would have their own in-house teams to do it, right? So when it is an in-house model, there is definitely an advantage because you are pretty close to the borrower because the person is continuously interacting with the borrower, he is visiting his place. So and even giving solutions, right? So that way it's a wonderful way to ensure that the money comes in time. The major challenge is the type of investment which it takes, and the second one is scaling up becomes a challenge over there. That is one challenge. Then eventually with financial institutions, what they started doing, they started outsourcing it. The clear advantage was that largely this model was performance driven. So money which comes in, the financial institution pays for that.
Correct.
Again, there were some fixed model as well, but largely on a variable model. So that way they were able to save on money. But again, the disaster was because now this guy is not sensitive about the borrower because collections is not about getting the money collected. It is a thin line between getting the money collected and even managing the borrower experience. Because largely for financial institutions, 30 to 40%, specifically in unsecured lending, are repeat borrowers.
Correct.
Right? So it is important that the borrowers are happy. Like, one time you can thrash him, you can get the money out of him. But again, he will not come back and, he will not be a return customer for you, right? So that is where the dent started coming in. Another challenge was the way they do collections, right? There are times they would go very aggressive because they will only think about their own self-interest. They will not think about the financial institution and the borrower. That was another dent. There were a lot of RBI, escalations and the tune of it. So all those challenges started coming in. So this was there. Then eventually now what has happened is these new age tech companies have also, started moving into the market. They have been doing a wonderful job. They have brought, technology in driving collections. But again, largely the space which is still vacant is because most of the organizations, they actually target on a niche. So someone would have a smart, channel to get collections done, something like a smart board. Someone would only have a hybrid model. Someone would do something around the field capabilities. What the industry needs is a full stack solutioning, someone who can give everything. And then on that, there is a layer of intelligence which is system driven. That is still to get evolved. So this is the opportunity which we figured out in Frenzo Finserv.
Okay.
And then we started working around it. So now coming to your question, where does Frenzo Finserv fit in and what is the USP? Nobody has so far brought the borrower within the ecosystem itself.
Okay.
I think that's a large piece which has got missed out. And we are the first ones who are bringing them inside. We understand that every borrower is unique, right? So say both of us have bounced our EMIs. The way you should be approached or the way you should be contacted, you should be reached out will be very, very different than the way I should be reached, right?
Okay.
Maybe, you had funded your account it fell short of 2 rupees and your EMI bounced, right? You don't expect somebody to, knock down your door and tell you that, sir, aapki EMI ka kya hua, right? For you, a simple nudge is more than sufficient, right? And for a person like me, maybe I'm an intentional defaulter, I don't want to pay, right? For me, I mean, a gentle nudge will really not work out. For me, the communication would be, more educational, like wherein somebody, tells me, okay, you have, not paid your EMI, but these are the repercussions which you can actually face. So all these are things which the system has to understand and tell you, right? So this is one capability which has been brought. The second thing what we have done is we have even created a borrower platform. When I have a borrower, a borrower platform which I can offer to the borrowers can firstly see their CIBIL scores, right? So they can work around their CIBIL score rectification, right? So that is the first solution which we are offering them. How will the rectification happen? Once, if there are certain loans which have been closed but they are still showing in CIBIL, that they are like weeded off. That is one. Second thing, if there are loans pending, we support them in getting the loans, nullified. So primarily, for this loan do this, for this loan do this, do a consolidation of the loans. With this, your CIBIL will increase. If we become their partners rather than only a channel partner for my financial institution who is only nudging him and asking for money, but when I start giving solutions to the borrower, then he becomes really interested in clearing of whatever dues he has from my partner's financial institution.
True.
And that is how I get it cleared. Then when his loan gets, when his CIBIL improves, I even give him options like, okay, now, you have a better CIBIL, why don't you take additional credit and all those things. So that is also a framework which we have created. So my model not only works for the financial institutions, it equally works for the borrowers as well.
Talk to me about unexpected challenges you faced in your entrepreneurship journey. I'm sure you anticipated a lot of things,
Yes.
challenges that you are bound to face.
Correct.
Talk to me about the unexpected ones, the ones you faced as an entrepreneur.
Unexpected ones, I think everything was unexpected. I actually label it that ways. But yes, unexpected challenges. Primarily, what happens is when you build on your team, like as a founder, you have a vision, right? This is a startup, and then you have people, and the people who join at early stages, you really feel you have the ownership for that people. With all those people that they have joined you at an early stage, you have to ensure their success, right? But a lot of times during the initial stages, maybe because in the rush of things, I think I at one stage of time even admit that I failed to make them realize that there is a longer path for them. So that's a challenge wherein there were a couple of weeks when I realized people, they were not aligned with my goals, right? But then eventually, like after that realization, I made them sit, did speak with them that this is what the roadmap for the organization is, and while the organization grows, this is how you grow. Because if people just come into a startup and they are not aware about where the startup is heading and what is there in for them, they would not be aligned to the larger goals of the organization.
You are somebody who has seen, in your entrepreneurship journey, you've seen failures with 3 experiments you did. You have seen the startup idea evolve over time. How do you deal with failure in life in general?
I think, if you are, if somebody really wants to venture into entrepreneurship, you want to venture into startup world, I think one should be really prepared to absorb, failure and live with it and grow over it. Because, the larger objective is to get larger success rather than worrying about smaller failures. They would come in. And the only thing, what really makes you successful in a startup world is how can you have solutions around things. So if that mindset is there, people overcome. But yes, one should be really prepared, because if somebody is moving into entrepreneurship, moving into the startup world, and that person has got a mindset that everything moves smooth, I think that's a wrong assumption altogether.
How do you see Frenzo Pay evolving in the next 2-3 years?
What we have been doing in Frenzo Finserv is that right now we have created a platform. We have started working on a service model now, right? The idea is that while we work on a service model, we take allocations from the financial institutions, run it through our platform, give them results, right? So that is something which we will keep on doing for the next few years. Then eventually, while we are doing that, we will keep on shaping up our operating system, strengthen up our platform, make a stronger ecosystem around it, work more on the borrower platform. So the idea is in the next 2-3 years is to make our operating system stronger, churn as much of data over this platform and complete the ecosystem. So that's the idea. And then once that is done, we'll grow larger after that.
Nice. Okay. From an origination standpoint, you spoke about origination doing very well.
Yeah.
Gen Zs are completely on STPL, which is short-term personal loans,
Yes.
and BNPL, buy now, pay later. How has that impacted the industry in a positive and negative way? If you could just share both sides.
Absolutely. So, I think when the new age borrowers have started, taking loans, somehow I think very interestingly, what we have figured out that couple of years back, getting collections from there was a task, right? I would admit that, right? Somehow, I mean, I have started seeing, this generation have started paying really well over the last few years.
Okay.
In the last 1 or 2 years, if you see the entire portfolios, I'm talking at a very generic sense, right? Because I have worked with many banks, many NBFCs, many fintechs, and have seen their collection, portfolios. To my surprise as well, if you actually bifurcate their portfolios in terms of collection basis their age, people under the age of 25, they're paying much better than other age brackets.
Wow.
In fact, that's a lucrative segment which has really come in well. But there might be a couple of reasons around it. Maybe because they are more aware about
CIBIL
they're
scores.
sensitive about financial products. They understand that today if they are not actually paying on time, that would directly dent their bureau, and then eventually it will impact any credit requirement which they would have in the future.
Home loan gets screwed.
So maybe they have actually understood that fact and they have started paying well. But this is a trend which I am factually seeing for over a year now.
In the last few years also, if you see where we are in the credit cycle right now, we've done a lot of reckless lending via fintechs and NBFCs. It's indirect lending via banks and levers, they take it via the bank. So how has that impacted the industry last few years?
Absolutely. So in fact, that's why even the regulator has been very harsh on the financial institution, and they have been always trying to control it. So see, I would not use the word reckless lending. I would specifically use the term experiments around lending, right?
Okay.
So when you talk about a financial institution like a fintech, fintech would not have the capacity to directly
lend to
extend
customers.
credit. So in that case, they need to have registered NBFCs or financial institutions who would source money, right? And that largely works on LMPD model, that works on risk sharing models and all. So now what happens in that case is that in that case, over years these fintechs have been experimenting, right? As I said, there is a huge portion of population in the country who don't have access to credit. Maybe they don't have proper bureau records, they don't have financial history, they may not have proper documents, right? But that does not label them as people who should not be given credit. And then I will give it to the financial institutions who have taken that risk, created alternate models and started lending them. There are certain models who have badly failed, right? And because of which the financial institution and the fintechs had to bear the heat. But there are other places it has actually worked out very well. And because of which there are a lot of new avenues which actually opened up.
Give me some examples on both sides.
I mean, I cannot mention names. So, but again, like if you talk about student loans, right? If you talk about student loans, when initially it was started, there were a lot of defaults, and I know certain large fintechs who had to burn their hands, right? But then eventually others realized that there is a scope over here. They tweaked the process and again started giving the same segment loans, and it worked out well, right? And they opened up a new segment, and then so that is just one part of it. Very simple thing. So something like an agricultural loan, when you give loans to farmer, right? Earlier there was a time when somebody will lend to a farmer, and that person will expect every month EMIs will come in, and the farmer will keep on paying. That largely doesn't happen.
True.
Because the farmer will only have money when the crops harvest, right? At that point of time, they have ample money and they will be paying all the dues. So this was this segment. Financial institutions were, they had their apprehensions, about lending to their segment, but eventually when they cracked it well, and it's moving on fine. So even now moving on to even a collection space per se. So whenever we actually, create our models, when we write our algorithm, so if there is a borrower who is a farmer, right, and he's staying in certain part of the country wherein the harvest happens, say, in the month of October. Now I have to collect that money in the month of July it's better that I communicate with him, but I hold on my patience till October. But because no matter how hard I try, ultimately I will end up frustrating him, but the money will not come in. Right?
Very true.
So, if I have those algorithms in place, if my algorithms are able to trace that this person, this profession, best money time is this, I will be able to crack it. So not only lending, even collections, it's helping me a lot. But it's more about, over the years, what has happened is people have tried to understand the borrower in a much better way. Not only restricting themselves doing the credit decisioning based on the financial history or the past records, but even finding alternate mechanisms and figuring out whether this person would have the right intentions or the capabilities to pay the money back.
How have you evolved as a professional over the last 2 decades?
Over the last 2 decades, yes, I think firstly I would say in terms of, 20 years back when I started my career, I would not label myself smart, but I would label myself as a very, very hardworking guy. I still, a couple of times, I would be so tired that, I will just, I will not know coming back home what's happening around. Like, so that's how about it. But I think I really believe in a philosophy that whenever a person feels satisfied, that person, is putting across a blocker in his own growth, right? So, over the last 20 years, whatever job I have got, whether it's business development, product development, whether it's doing sales, whether it is doing enabling collections, running ops, building things, I have actually picked up everything with a lot of enthusiasm. I think because of all those things done in bits and pieces, it really helped me, when I was actually working on my own startup and moving it through. So there are a lot of times like, people, have a understanding that I'll work very hard for 2 years, make my, startup do well and everything. But they don't realize that it's not that those 2 years will really make your startup grow. It's about what all a person has done in his entire life has brought substance in that person, and because of which these 2 years will be more effective for him. So that's about it.
I see. And do you see yourself evolving as a leader in the last, say, 10 years or even more?
Absolutely. So, as a leader, I think it's very, very, very important that what sort of leadership do you choose? And I would not say that there is a standard way of leading, right? You can lead from the front, which everybody's want. You can lead from behind as well. Both works.
True.
Right. But it depends on the type of leadership. What do you... you want to move your teams with aggression, or you want to move your teams wherein the team values the overall goals and want to move with you. So it's a personal choice, and the choice should be made in such a way which aligns with your personality, right? What I really realized that, as a leader, firstly, one should be very, very clear about what you really want to do, right? And then should be able to very well communicate it to the team as well, right? This has to be done, because I found a lot of leaders there, either they don't have a proper vision or proper line of sight. Even if they have it, they are not able to communicate it well to the team, and there is a misalignment. So that's the basic thing which has to be taken care of. Secondly, everybody likes, and again, even people have evolved a lot. People don't want somebody who would give order, do that. People always, like someone who would sit with them, do a part of it, and then move it across to them, because that is where they have a feeling that they have been guided, they have been held, and now they have been onboarded with the responsibility, and then they take it ahead as such. As a personality, what I really feel is that my way of working has been I work on trust, right? Because I really feel that when you show trust on your team, it reciprocates, and that has always happened. So I think that's my leadership style, which I've been using over the years, and that has really worked out well for me.
Right. You must have had to make a lot of personal sacrifices with the kind of work you do, the intensity that's there. Talk to me about the personal sacrifices you've had to make.
Personal sacrifices, yes. So I'll tell you what. Initially, when I was working, I thought of upgrading myself, right? I thought of doing some additional things. So I got through an MTech. There's an MTech which is a work integrated MTech from BITS Pilani. So I did that for 2 years, right? And that was to evolve myself and better up myself. So again, at that point of time, for the for those 2 years, we never had vacations, nothing. So my wife and my kid would sleep at 10:30, and then after they sleep, I would start studying. So that is how I literally did it. Even while working on my startup, again, like it were late nights, working on Sundays and everything. So one has to realize that, if you want comforts of life and you want to do something great, both cannot happen hand to hand. It's very important that one has to really move out of that comfort zone, and only then something is achieved. But more importantly, in doing that, I think you should not really avoid or, just leave your loved ones like that. They should be also aligned with your goals, because once your family members, your loved ones are aligned, they know what you are doing. They know their motive. They'll also always support you, right? So it should not be imposed on them that, see, I'm doing something which is very valuable, so don't disturb me. It should never go that way, right? And I truly feel that once they are aligned, they support you a lot. So fortunately, I'm lucky enough that my family support me a lot during the entire journey.
Nice. You had such a diverse career.
Yeah.
So this is for the younger people out there. How should one go about approaching their career?
Correct. So there is one session which I take of everyone who joins my organization, right? And I make them understand where have you joined. And I tell this to a lot of people. So it's very important that whichever game you play, you should know the rules of the game, and you should also know the ground, right? So largely, if you see an organization, either it's a small startup, or it is startup which has evolved, which has become big, or it is startup which has now become a unicorn or a multinational or a really large one, right? So these are these three stages, right? One should really know what really fits for him well, right? So if you go to a early stage startup, it's I actually relate it like a marriage party, right? घर में जैसे शादी होती है ना, it happens like this, right? So you go to a startup, everybody is doing everything, Taya ji is going and, building on the tent, Mama ji is, helping the cooks, somebody is going and receiving the guests. So early stage startup is something like that, because there, nobody is an expert, but everybody knows the goal is that the marriage should happen well.
Correct.
The only person crying is the investor, who's the father. Right? But that's how marriages happen, right? So everybody doing everything. There are no defined roles. Everybody enjoying their work.
Correct.
Extending their limits. Nobody, there a lot of time you'll hear in manager, रात को सोए नहीं, सुबह 4 बजे सोए, 6 बजे आ गए, फिर ये किया. And people are, getting fun out of it, right? Nobody's tired. This is an early stage startup, right? Then eventually what happens is it evolves to, maybe you can relate it with a football match. So what happens in a football match? All the players, they know their role, right? Everybody knows that, I'm a goalkeeper, I'm in the midfield, I'm a striker. Everybody knows that, right? They are placed accordingly. So roles, responsibilities are defined. But it's not that tomorrow, if, what happens if the goalkeeper gets a chance, he will not stop himself from hitting a goal. He will go ahead and,
score a goal
as well, right? So that is how it is. That's a mid-stage startup. Large stage company is something like what you can relate it. It's like a watch, right? There are a lot of levers, right? So you are a part of that lever. You have a specific job. You have to do that. That lever moves. Everybody is doing their job. Every lever is moving, and ultimately
the needle moves.
Right? So this is how it is. So firstly, before venturing into any organization, one has to be clear what really fits his or her interest and his or her capability. Might be for certain people, a large organization will fit well, wherein they have very well defined role. You know what to do, how to do, when to do, everything is you fit well there. That's a good place for you. And might be there are certain people, for them, finding methods in madness is the place wherein they get satisfaction that fits their capability. They should actually go to an early stage startup. Or there are few who don't want to sync up into a large organization or don't want to go into chaos. They should go into a reasonably big startup, right? So you should really understand which state it is and what really suits your capability. So in fact, there are a lot of people who you come over and tell me that I'm working in a large organization, I have to wait for 3 years for a promotion. So I would say that you have chosen a long place. If you want to get promoted everywhere, you should look out for something else. And there are few people who would actually come to an early stage organization and say startup maybe, and then they expect that everything should be all set, all processes in place and everything. But you have to realize what you have actually chosen, or what you have signed for. So that's about it. So you should be very clear where you are going, whether you are really made to do that, and how can you benefit from there.
As a corporate employee, when do you think one should think about starting up? Everyone has that itch. Everyone
Correct.
is driven, motivated.
Absolutely.
So when should one start actualizing it?
So one should really start actualizing it. I think during the initial years of career, people get fairly, clear about the fact that they want to grow within an organization, which is also the right path as such, or they want to create an organization and make it grow, right? So firstly, that clarity should be there, right? It should. I have seen a lot of pieces that मजा नहीं आ रहा काम करने के लिए अपना काम कर लेते हैं. That's a wrong feeling, right? If it is coming from within you that you want to be an entrepreneur, then only you should start working around it. But otherwise, if you feel that only because of some external pressure you want to move into entrepreneurship, that's a wrong decision, right? That's one. But when then you realize that yes, entrepreneurship is the road for you, then you should start exploring. Never limit yourself. It's nothing like you have an idea. If it's not working out, move on to something else, but give it due time. I mean, it's not that keep on hopping on ideas. That's a wrong thing to do. Again, there are a lot of people have seen that they have multiple ideas in the mind, and they're confused what to do, what to pick up. They pick up something, do it for some span of time, and they leave it. Right? I would confess that I even did it for some time. Like as I said, travel my opened up a website, and you have lot of big players in travel. Travel industry is doing so well. I did not do well because I was not focused. So when you pick up focus, try to grow it well, give it time. And eventually, if you realize it's really not working for you, you're not made for it, then okay, move on to something else.
What are the right indicators to give up? I think because that is the hard part.
Absolutely.
So what, to your mind, are the right indicators to give up on an idea?
See, the right indicators to give up, firstly, I feel you should actually pick up what you can consume over the plate. I mean, that's how it is. There are times, I think, people start venturing into more than they can really consume or manage, right? That is one. So one should really pick up small, build it, and during the initial stages, only you get the right signals whether it will work for you, it will not work for you, right? If at that stage, if you find it is not working for you, you should take a call, right? But again, that should be a genuine call, because I even told you, like when we are creating a product, after like 1.5 years, the product which turned up, we were not confident about it, right? So then we could have taken a hard call, we will not be able to make it. But we started trying.
Correct.
1 year we could not get a client, right? We could have actually taken a call that maybe there is no market for this, and then we could have dropped it. The reality of life is that in a matter of 6 months, we have signed 10 clients, right? Which is the fastest in the industry.
Wow.
So there are not straightforward indicators, but again, one should be very rational, and if you have to move out, you should be a rational thought.
So my last question for the day today.
Yeah.
What are the key, what are 3-4 things you would advise young people out there starting up? What are the 3-4 things they should look at or do while starting up?
First important thing while starting up is the idea itself.
Okay.
Right? Idea should be exciting. It should be disruptive. Right?
Okay.
Because the thing is that if the idea doesn't excite you, you will not carry on with it for a longer time, right? It should not be relative. I mean, if somebody is doing great somewhere and you feel that he's doing well, even I'll do well, it's not the right way of putting it across, right? You should be very independent of finding out what you want to really do. So that is one. The second thing, whether it is worth doing it or not as well. I want to do this. I'm excited about it. But is it really worth doing it? So once that idea finalization is there, the second thing is you have to really realize what sort of scope is it does that hold, right? Maybe the market is huge, right? But the addressable market is very small, right? If you talk about payments is a large market, there are a lot of payments going to, but when you want to really start your business, will you get any place in that entire system? That is important to understand. So wherever you want to go, whether there is a market or not, that's the second assessment which one has to do. Now, once these two things are placed, you have a good idea, you have a market. The third thing is about the team. Either you want to be a solo entrepreneur, you are able to manage it, it's fine, go ahead with it, right? Or find people who are like-minded, who understand what you're doing, who will be there in the long term, who will put their skin into it. Because team is critical. And I always say, when anyone invests in a startup, the first thing a person looks at is the team. People go later on the idea. Who is doing it? Everybody is an idea. There's a lot of market. But more importantly, who is doing this thing, whether this person will be able to do it or not. Address these three things. Once that is done, then lastly, which is very, very important, to really know about whether to, execute that idea, you have your funds or not. How will you execute it? So because, again, a lot of startups will start, they dry out of funds and they die. So you should plan up in such a way, or your model should be run in such a way that you should have adequate runway. If these basics are kept in place, I think until and unless there is an external factor, affecting it, the chances of failures are pretty low.
Nice. Fantastic. This has been awesome, Janmit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on board for this one.
Pleasure is all mine.
Thank you.